Since the emergence of classic American cinema in the post-Civil War era, filmmaking has frequently been used to drive racial propaganda and address race relationships in the United States. Representation of Black Americans in film has been present since the origin of Hollywood cinema. But, needless to say, the representation has not always been positive, accurate, or beneficial to the lives of Black people. Even films that were revolutionary to the world of cinema, such as The Birth of a Nation by D.W. Griffith, are prime examples of how the portrayal of Black Americans is often crafted by the hands of those who have not lived the Black experience. These perpetuations in media have breeded many recurring stereotypes that have not only reinforced negative perceptions of Black people, but as a result have also caused constant threats to their safety. Black women specifically are the demographic that is most frequently on the cultural chopping block when it comes to films and television shows. Since the post-Civil War era, Black women have been portrayed to be either really loud, rude, sassy, not super intelligent, or even overly sexual. Now, although Black women are completely capable and even entitled to being these traits, it does not fully represent all that Black women are capable of being. Black women can also be shy, awkward, quirky, and highly intelligent, but these traits are often less portrayed in film and television. Now, many improvements have been made since then in the representation of Black women in film and television shows, particularly in the light of the contemporary film period. This is not to say, however, that negative representation doesn't still exist, because in many ways, modern media continues to submit to negative stereotypes of Black women, just typically in more diluted ways.
Dear white people, wow.
Although Black women still face the repercussions of culturally embedded stereotypes and tropes, there have been significant strides in the representation of Black women in film and television shows, and Black women have begun to claim and control how they want to be perceived in media. The truth is that there are still many historically infamous stereotypes of Black women that have made their way into the modern cinematic period. However, there are also many modern film and TV shows that have succeeded in promoting healthier representations of Black women, and both will be explored today. So, in order to explore how historically infamous stereotypes and tropes of Black women have made their way into modern cinema, we first must explore what these stereotypes and tropes are and why they are dangerous. Some of the most common Black female tropes that have appeared throughout cinema over the decades include the mammy, the sapphire/independent Black woman, the angry Black woman, the Jezebel, and most notoriously in modern cinema, the Black best friend. Now, hearing these tropes, all of them may not sound necessarily bad, and that is because stereotypes and tropes don't necessarily have to be blatantly offensive or negative. But with any generalization of a mass group of people, it's important to acknowledge and recognize that stereotypes and tropes do not accurately represent a wide range of people, especially the individuality of Black women. Starting with the mammy. The mammy is a trope that defines a Black woman in the deep antebellum South who serves a white family. The mammy is portrayed as an obedient and submissive servant who is typically not shown to have any sort of romantic or personal interest. Her sole purpose is to continue giving, and she never gets tired. She is not really seen as a person with depth, she is merely there to serve the family. One of the most popular and most recent depictions of the mammy can be seen in the 2011 movie The Help. Now, this film actually does a better job in humanizing the stories of the Black servants. However, it still nonetheless submits to the mammy trope and a white savior narrative. Viola Davis, an Oscar-winning actress who played a lead role in The Help, even came out to say she regretted her role in the film. Her quotes were shared in a news story by ET Canada.
A lot of narratives are also invested in our humanity. They're invested in the idea of what it means to be Black, but it's catering to the white audience. The white audience at the most can sit and get an academic lesson into how we are. Then they leave the movie theater and they talk about what it meant. They're not moved by who we were.
Yeah, and when it comes to feeling regret for being in the film, Viola says, "There's no one who's not entertained by the help, but there's a part of me that feels like I betrayed myself and my people because I was in a movie that wasn't ready to tell the whole truth." And she goes on to say that the movie was, quote, "created in the filter and the cesspool of systemic racism."
As Davis mentioned, the mammy trope only offers a very filtered look into their lives. Even in The Help, the mammy stereotype is dangerous because although the servants are portrayed in a more positive light, the bulk of the glory still falls on the people that they serve. The next notorious trope is the sapphire/independent black woman. Now, this trope is typically present in romantic comedies. The sapphire can be defined as an independent black woman who is often too particular to find a man worth falling in love with. Although being independent is certainly not a bad thing, this trope can be dangerous because, like the mammy trope, it generates a "I don't need help from anybody" attitude. This trope can be seen in the 1998 American romantic comedy How Stella Got Her Groove Back. Now, the assertion here is not that the portrayal of Stella in this film is negative, because it's actually quite the opposite. The depiction of Stella in this film is very positive and uplifting. However, the idea is that the frequent use of this trope throughout films contributes to the larger stereotype that black women are independent, not needing help from anybody. Again, the sapphire/independent black woman trope may not seem all that bad, but in society, this stereotype actually leaves very little room for black women to be vulnerable and sensitive.
Hell no.
What did you say?
Hell no.
What did she say?
The next trope that we have is the angry black woman trope. The angry black woman stereotype or trope is defined as an African American woman who is ill-mannered, ill-tempered, and sassy by nature. Now, the scene I just showed from The Color Purple doesn't really reinforce the angry black woman stereotype, because from a viewer's perspective, the audience is able to evoke sympathy for the character, because they know that she is vulnerable and in need of self-defense. But rather, we must look at this from the historical context of how the white people in the film viewed her during this time period. Clearly, the people in this scene only view her as angry and violent, not seeing that she is in need of help. Now, this thought process definitely comes from the constant dehumanization and demonization of black women. According to an article from Black Explosion News, this stereotype dates back to the 19th century when minstrel shows created comic skits mocking black people's physical features. To this day, this dehumanizing nuance still transcends into modern depictions of black people, specifically black women. This caricature of Serena Williams was drawn only 2 years ago in 2019, and as you can see, it still subscribes to the angry black women stereotype that women have tried so hard to escape from. The way Williams is depicted here is very similar to caricatures that were drawn several decades ago. And given how black women are portrayed in media in today's society, it shows that society is still trying to reinforce that black women are angry, masculine, and upset. This is definitely one of the more negative and offensive tropes, and perhaps the most dangerous, because this one directly affects how black women are treated and protected in society.
Brothers, gather round, 'cause she can really shake 'em down. Foxy lady, foxy lady. Pam Grier, that one chick hit squad who creamed you as coffee, is back to do a job on the mob as Foxy Brown.
You tell me who you want done, and I'll do the hell out of it.
This brings us to our next trope, the Jezebel, which is also referred to as the sexual siren. Jezebels can be defined as African American women who pretty much care about nothing besides their own sexual satisfaction. They are shown wearing very skin-tight clothing, and they are almost unrealistically promiscuous. Actually, I'm now going to say that the Jezebel trope is the most dangerous trope towards black women, because not only does it exploit black women for profit, but it also makes black females vulnerable to hypersexualization, especially young black girls. The repercussions of this stereotype are very evident in Billie Holiday's life. All you have to do is watch Lady Sings the Blues. Young black girls are often robbed of their innocence and their childhoods from a very young age, including Billie Holiday. She was raped at a very young age and even apprenticed at a brothel. Eventually, she fell into drugs, which led to her demise. All of this is a reflection of the repercussions of negative stereotypes. It inflicts harm and impedes on the safety of black women.
Shit, don't nobody want you, don't nobody need you. You done fucked around and fucked my motherfucking man and had 2 motherfucking children.
Another film that highlights the effects of the Jezebel stereotype on young black females is the movie Precious. Precious is violated by her father at a very young age, having 2 biological children with her father. Throughout the film, it becomes very apparent that Precious is never really able to enjoy an innocent childhood. Her mother often holds her accountable as if she were an adult, and the circumstances that stack up against her completely rob her of her innocence. You can also see a very similar scenario happening to Sally in The Color Purple. While the protagonists of the films that I listed don't directly feed into the Jezebel stereotype, you can very clearly see the historical implications and how they affect young black women. Although it can be easy to confuse a sexy black woman versus a woman being portrayed as a sex object, especially in today's hypersexualized society, it is still very important to make the distinction.
I enjoy working long hours, late nights, even weekends. So feel free to use me however you see fit.
Needless to say, we need to make away with the Jezebel trope, because not only does it dehumanize black women, but it also pushes the generalization that all black women are sexually aggressive.
Here's where Dion lives. She's my friend because we both know what it's like to have people be jealous of us.
Girlfriend.
The next trope that we have is probably the most common and the most subtle trope that has been used since the 90s to the present, and that is the black best friend. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with depicting interracial friendships in movies. I mean, heck, if they made a movie about my best friend, I too would fall into the role of black best friend. Now, the problem lies within the frequency and the manner in which this trope is used in television shows and film. If you look at the black best friend, she is almost always a sassy sidekick, and her only purpose in the movie is to uplift the white protagonist. At first glance, this might seem like a bit of a stretch, but when you look deeper into it, the black best friend is typically never shown having a lot of depth. You don't really get to know much about her personal life or her personality. Typically, the only personality traits you see of the black best friends are ones that promote black female stereotypes. Let's look at Dion from the movie Clueless. Now, Dion is not an unlikable character by any means, but her character does still fall into the black best friend trope because she does employ a lot of the same stereotypes that are historically used within film and television.
I don't know where that came from. That looks like one of your little stringy something.
As you can see by this scene of Dion yelling at her boyfriend, her character reinforces that angry, sassy black girl stereotype. Again, there's nothing wrong with a black woman possessing these traits or being depicted as such in media. However, this trope can be dangerous because it is the only black best friend that we get to see. The black best friend is always shown being sassy and loud or fierce, bold. She's never really depicted in any other way. The black best friend is also very stagnant throughout a film. While the white lead protagonist is shown going through major character developments, the black best friend really does not see any sort of character arc. Even though stereotypes exist among all cultures and genders, these perpetuations can be even more devastating to the black female demographic. It can be highly exhausting to never see yourself accurately represented every time you turn on the television.
Keep your money.
You crazy as hell.
Just leave it.
I might leave some of it.
All of the historically infamous stereotypes that have become cinematic tropes, from the mammy, the independent black woman, the angry black woman, the Jezebel, and the black best friend. All of these present black women as a type or as a caricature. None of these tropes dive into who black women truly are.
Okay, never trust anyone who starts a sentence with, all due respect. That's right behind, I have tons of black friends, but
Anna does have a point.
How, Sway?
Now that we've looked into why these tropes and stereotypes are dangerous, we can now look into the ways that the contemporary film period has began to dismantle these stereotypes and how black women have been able to reclaim how they are presented in media. Modern film and television shows actually prove that tropes can be quite beneficial if they are crafted by the hands of Black stories and Black people.
I'm awkward and black. Doubt it, it's fact. Ain't with me, you're bad. Season 2.
One of the more recent tropes to surface in modern film and TV is the quirky, awkward Black girl. Now, this trope is different from the rest because this trope was actually created by Black women to paint a narrative that is accurate to them. This trope interrupts the broken record of the same old stereotypes that have been played over and over again. A leading pioneer who is dismantling Black female stereotypes is Issa Rae. Issa Rae is the creator and lead actress of the comedy show Insecure. This show is a contemporary take on the life of a Black woman, showing that Black women too deal with real-life flaws, insecurities, and awkward everyday experiences. Not only does Insecure do an amazing job of showing Black people of all colors and all walks of life, but it also completely demolishes the strong Black girl, I don't need help from anybody trope. This show alone adds so much dimension to how Black women are represented. Issa Rae's character is uncoordinated, quirky, and almost painfully awkward, and these are great traits to portray because it simply hasn't really been done before. The range of identities in this show is immaculate, escaping previous tropes such as the Black best friend trope that leave Black characters and Black identities very stagnant. Shauna Redmond, a professor from the University of South Carolina, talks about the importance of this representation in the Issa Rae documentary Awkward is the New Black.
As this character that's built from awkwardness, right? And we're so unaccustomed to seeing Black folks as anything other than the life of the party or the dancer, the extrovert, right? And she's really bringing some complicated narratives to bear on those types of representations.
Yeah, it really is no surprise that the newer representations of Black women are a bit more difficult to digest because, again, it really has not been done prior to the contemporary period. Shows like Insecure are revolutionary because it counters other negative perpetuations and images we see of Black women in media. This show communicates a need for more shows that highlight accurate narratives and representations of Black girls. A movie from the cinematic film period that does an excellent job of dismantling historically infamous stereotypes is the 2017 film Hidden Figures. Hidden Figures denies many of the common Black female tropes. Similarly to the television show Insecure, Hidden Figures provides a more dimensional, in-depth look into the personal lives of Black women. Now, this isn't the first time an intelligent Black female character has appeared on the big screen, but Hidden Figures has taken the representation to new heights. Katherine Johnson, who is played by Taraji P. Henson, is so intelligent that it is almost unfathomable. Not only is she smart, but she is also portrayed as gracious, kind, and even a bit timid. Now, the best part of these character traits is that they are never used to place Johnson in a submissive role. She might have moments of shyness, but she is also not afraid to hold her ground. The dimension of the characters in Hidden Figures is what conveys a more accurate representation of Black women. It humanizes them. The Black female leads in this film still have moments when they are sassy, independent, and even a bit angry at times, but it never comes off as inorganic. After all, they are humans with human emotions, and they have a wide range of them. The positive difference with Hidden Figures is that it never compartmentalizes them into one box. Hidden Figures also remarkably succeeds in avoiding the white savior complex, which can be defined as a dynamic in which a white person helps a non-Black person in a way that is self-serving to them. This complex is present in so many modern films and TV shows. Oftentimes, it's not intentional either. This complex is often accompanied by tropes such as the mammy and the Black best friend, which you can see in the movie The Help. To many of our pleasant surprise, this complex simply was not present in Hidden Figures. Katherine Johnson's dynamic with the director Al Harrison comes off very genuine and very organic. Harrison comes to acknowledge that Johnson is well deserving of her position. And yeah, their dynamic, it still acts as a heartwarming representation of racial unity and promotes diversity, but his efforts to support Johnson never outshine or take away from Johnson's heroic role in the story. This in itself dismantles so many culturally embedded historical stereotypes that suggest that women, and Black women specifically, cannot be leaders. Another honorable mention for a movie that shows women in charge and dismantles historical stereotypes is The Black Panther. The movies and shows I've listed are only a handful of those that have dismantled historical stereotypes and promoted healthier representations of Black women. And yes, there is still a long way to go because there are many forms of media within the contemporary period that still submit and succumb to historical stereotypes. However, the contemporary film period looks very promising as it seems we have been thrust into a more hopeful era when it comes to the portrayal and representation of Black women in media. It can be easy to get discouraged sometimes, but the growth of our society is evident in the sheer difference of films such as The Birth of a Nation to films such as The Black Panther. The dismantling of these stereotypes need to continue in order to promote awareness for the diversity that is present among Black people and Black womanhood specifically. Now that there is more consciousness, the growth will continue. And one day we will be able to see a sassy Black girl and a timid Black girl coexisting peacefully in the same film. The further we stray from negative stereotypes, the closer we become to the evident truth that diversity is beautiful.